Dr. Elena Ramirez adjusted the stethoscope around her neck as 9-year-old Noah Carter settled onto the examination table. His mother, Claire, hovered nearby, her voice low as she reassured him that the doctor was just going to look at his heart and lungs. The office smelled of antiseptic and warm vanilla from the hand lotion by the sink. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the pale blue walls, and educational posters warning against smoking and sugary drinks. Elena began her examination by listening carefully to Noah's breathing. He was calm, perhaps too calm for a child who often squirmed impatiently in her office. She tapped gently on his knees, checking reflexes, and then asked him to roll up his sleeves. When she saw the mottled areas on his forearms, she frowned. Small, irregular patches of discolored skin, faintly raised and oddly shaped, marred what should have been smooth flesh. They did not resemble a rash or common birthmark. "Mom, what's this?" Noah asked, his blue eyes wide with concern. Claire forced a reassuring smile. "Oh, it's nothing, sweetheart. Just a little sunburn from the weekend." Her tone was too light, too quick, as if she wanted to change the subject. Elena thanked Noah and asked him to lie back while she examined his torso. That was when she noticed more, a series of tiny, linear scars running down his ribs, each half-healed and faint. They looked like they had been inflicted by a heated object, their edges sharp against pale skin. Elena's heart hammered in her chest. Burns on a child required explanation. She cleared her throat to mask her alarm. "Claire, could you step outside for a moment? I need to speak with you privately." The door clicked softly behind the mother and child. Elena closed her eyes for a brief second, recalling her training. Pediatric guidelines mandated that unexplained injuries must be investigated. When she reopened them, her expression was professional but firm. Inside the office, Claire's posture stiffened. She wrapped her arms across her chest as Elena began gently. "These marks look like burns, Claire. I need to understand how Noah received them." Claire's lips parted, then pressed together. For a moment, she said nothing. The humidity from the waiting room crept under the door, but inside, tension filled the space. Claire swallowed and cleared her throat. "He scratched himself in the sandbox," she said, voice wavering. "I didn't notice until yesterday. Sandpaper can burn, you know." Elena forced a neutral expression, silently rejecting the explanation. "Sand burns are possible, but these resemble contact burns. Heated objects tend to leave patterns, like these. Was Noah near anything hot? A radiator, a curling iron?" Claire's eyes flicked away. "He plays near the space heater sometimes," she admitted finally. "I thought he moved away before touching it." Elena nodded slowly. "I see. I'm obliged to document any injuries that are inconsistent or unexplained. If it's okay, I'd like to take a photograph and note the date. We should also ensure Noah is safe at home." Claire hesitated, glancing back toward the closed door. "Do you really think I'd hurt him? You must understand how that sounds." Elena met her gaze steadily. "I'm not accusing anyone. I'm gathering information. My role is to protect Noah's health and well-being." A moment of silence passed as Claire considered her words. Then she nodded reluctantly, her shoulders slumping. "Okay, do what you need to do." Elena left the room for her camera. When she returned, Noah looked up, curious. She smiled gently. "Just a quick picture, buddy. Mom and I are making sure you're healthy." He nodded, trusting. Afterward, Elena closed the door and marked her notes. Burns unexplained. Mother's explanation inconsistent. Recommend further assessment and a home visit. As she typed, the uneasy feeling in her chest grew stronger. A pediatrician's intuition rarely erred. She would follow this trail wherever it led, even if it meant calling Child Protective Services later that day. She knew that uncovering the truth could save a life and would weigh heavily on her conscience. Dr. Elena Ramirez slipped out of her crisp white coat and draped it over the back of her office chair as dusk settled over the clinic. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead while she rifled through Noah Carter's chart, her brow knitting as she reviewed the photographs of his burns. Each image insisted on answers she did not yet possess. The calendar on her desk reminded her that this was her last appointment of the day, but her mind refused to rest. She clicked open the hospital's child protection protocol on her computer, scanning the flowchart that instructed her to document, photograph, and report any suspicious injuries. A chill ran down her spine. Following these steps meant initiating a process that could fracture a family, yet failing to act could endanger a child. The weight of that responsibility settled like a stone in her gut. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Nurse Patel peeked in, her expression sympathetic. "Still here, doctor?" Elena managed a tired smile. "I wanted to double-check. I'll file the report tonight and consult social work in the morning." Patel nodded and lingered. "If you need support, call me any time." Elena appreciated the offer. Having a colleague who understood the stakes was a small comfort against the isolation she felt whenever she confronted possible child abuse. Once Patel left, Elena leaned back and closed her eyes. Memories flickered. The first time she had hesitated to report a head injury that turned out to be maltreatment, the guilt that had followed. She'd vowed never to let fear of conflict silence her professional judgment again. Still, each new case battered her conviction. There was a difference between theory and the moment she pressed send on a report that would summon scrutiny into a home, possibly separating a child from the only parents he knew. Her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital social worker Carla Nguyen. "Let's touch base tomorrow. Prep for home visit." Elena tapped out a quick reply, then opened her email to draft a message to Dr. Michael Soto, her mentor in pediatrics. Michael had once told her, "Those shadows beneath your white coat are your own fears. Use that darkness to guide you toward justice, not away from it." She recalled his steady voice in her first months on staff, his encouragement when she faltered. She needed his counsel now. Typing carefully, she outlined the case. 9-year-old burns, inconsistent explanation, pattern-raising red flags. She asked for his advice on engaging child protective services. She hit send and felt the familiar flutter of anxiety. Within minutes, her inbox pinged with his reply. "I stand by you. Follow protocol. You're doing the right thing." Elena exhaled and shut her laptop. The knowledge that she was not alone steadied her, yet the loneliness of confronting hidden harm remained. She stood and wandered to the examination room where Noah had sat. Empty now, it still smelled faintly of hand sanitizer and vanilla lotion. She ran her fingers along the edge of the steel tray that held tongue depressors and reflex hammers. It felt surreal to realize a once safe space for healing could also be the site of her greatest moral challenge. Her reflection in the window pane caught her, tired eyes beneath fine lines, dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, a stethoscope slung over her neck like a badge of duty. She wondered what shadows others saw in her, the weight of decisions she carried. A car rolled past outside, headlights cutting through the gathering gloom. She pressed a hand to the glass, as though she could hold the night at bay. Retrieving her coat, she paused at the door of the nurse's station where Patagonia maps and children's drawings adorned the walls. Nurse Patel had taped up a watercolor of a yellow sun. Its bright rays seemed to mock Elena's heaviness. She studied it, willing herself to find that same light. Tomorrow would bring new questions. Interviews with Claire, a home visit with Carla, potentially confronting evidence that might shatter a family forever. But for now she would return home, seeking rest, despite the shadows stirring in her mind. As she flicked off the clinic lights, Elena allowed herself one fragile hope that her vigilance and compassion would guide her through the darkness, ensuring Noah's safety and preserving trust in a system built to protect the most vulnerable. She locked the door behind her and stepped into the night. Claire Carter's voice was too bright when Elena called her back into the examination room. She'd hesitated by the nurse's station, smoothing her dark hair as if arranging a disguise. "Hi, doctor," she said with practiced calm, though her eyes looked brittle. She held her purse strap in both hands, knuckles white. Elena gestured toward the medical camera on the wall mount, then at Noah's forearm. "I need to document these burns. It's part of our standard procedure whenever injuries are unexplained." Claire's breath caught, and she slid past Elena to cloak Noah's arm with her own body. "Of course," she said, voice trembling too much for the words. I just want him to be comfortable. He's already scared." She spoke too quickly, too defensively. Noah sat silent on the table, hands folded in his lap, watching them exchange words he neither prompted nor understood fully. Elena handed Claire a small clipboard with a consent form. "Please sign here," she said gently. "This authorizes me to take photographs and report details to Child Protective Services if needed. It ensures we follow state laws designed to protect children." Claire's eyes flicked between the form and Eleanor's face. With a quick nod, she scribbled her name, nearly ripping the paper as she pulled the pen away. When Claire hesitated before handing the pen back, Elena met her gaze. "Thank you. I understand this is difficult, but these measures exist to help families like yours when a child may be at risk." Claire pressed her lips together, blinked once, and turned to stand beside Noah. Her arm encircled him as if shielding him from something worse than burns. "I appreciate that," she murmured. Elena flipped on the camera's lighting and crouched beside Noah. "We need to photograph each area so I can include it in my report." "You're doing great, Noah." The boy nodded stiffly, eyes downcast. Elena snapped the first image. The flash reflected in Claire's dark eyes like a sudden alarm bell. Claire swallowed, brow furrowing. "Doctor, do we really need so many pictures?" she asked, voice taut. "These photographs serve as an objective record," Eleanor explained softly. "If there's ever a question about how and when these injuries occurred, the images establish the facts." She paused, knowing the implications of what she was saying, that she suspected harm had come from within his home. Claire looked away, lips pressed in a thin line. Elena moved methodically from one burn to the next, focusing on edges, color variations, linear patterns. Claire remained silent, her protective arm never wavering from Noah's shoulders. After 5 photos, Elena straightened and allowed Claire to guide Noah's sleeve back down. Claire's hand lingered on his wrist for a heartbeat too long, as if reassuring herself that he was safe under her watch. "Thank you, Claire." Elena tucked the camera away. "I've documented everything. The next step is a home visit by our social worker, Carla Nguyen. She'll reach out to schedule it." Claire's face paled. "A home visit?" she echoed, voice small. I'm not sure when is convenient. I have a lot going on right now." Her hands fluttered, as if catching butterflies. "I know this feels intrusive," Elena said, voice gentle but firm. "Carla's role is to ensure Noah's environment is safe and supportive. If these burns are accidental, a quick visit will clarify that. If not, well, we must do our due diligence." Claire's shoulders sagged as relief outweighed indignation. "I understand." She nodded briskly. I'll coordinate with Carla." Elena watched Claire's quick exhale, the silent signal that she was releasing her own tension, whatever tension that was. She imagined Claire rehearsing conversations in her mind, preparing rebuttals or explanations. Elena knew mothers did. All they could for their children, but she reminded herself that not every mother protected with loving hands. Some wielded fear as a shield, and in the quiet aftermath of documentation, suspicion still lingered like a tremor beneath the surface. As Claire gathered her purse and steered Noah toward the door, Elena offered one final reassurance. "Noah, I'll see you next week. In the meantime, if anything changes or you're in pain, let me know immediately." The boy managed a weak smile. Claire's grip on his hand tightened, their exit swift and purposeful. Elena closed the door and exhaled, listening to her own heart slow. The clinic fell silent again, but the shadow of doubt remained in the sterile room. She opened her patient management system and began crafting her narrative, factual, thorough, unemotional. A mother's quick excuse was merely the first layer of explanation. Beneath it, Elena intended to search for the truth. Dr. Elena Ramirez settled behind her desk and pulled Noah's chart closer, eyes trained on the sequence of visits that had become alarmingly regular. Monday of last week, Wednesday morning, yesterday afternoon. Each record noted the same vague complaint. Burning sensation on his arms. The notes from Nurse Patel included temperature normal, general checkup unremarkable. Elena clicked. Opened the image files to review the photographs of the burns again. She compared them side by side. The shapes were too precise to be random, the coloration too varied for ordinary sunburn. She opened her digital calendar and scheduled time to review past patient records from the pediatric clinic. If a pattern existed across multiple cases, it could indicate more than a one-off accident. The thought made her stomach tighten. She typed a query in the health record system: burns, contact, pediatric, unexplained. The software returned a dozen cases over the last 2 years. Elena began scrolling, searching for familiar clustering. One case stood out: a 6-year-old girl whose mother had declined a follow-up and insisted her daughter's burns came from curling iron mishandling. The explanations echoed Claire Carter's: plausible accidents conveniently timed. Next, she reviewed case notes on a 9-year-old boy with linear patterned burns on his thighs. The parents in that instance insisted on an electrical burn from faulty wiring. The child had never returned for follow-up. Elena frowned as she thought of what might have happened. In every file, she noted parents' explanations inconsistent with medical evidence. Had she overlooked warning signs then? She minimized regret and focused on the emerging pattern. She reached for her phone and called Carla Nguyen. When Carla answered, Elena laid out her preliminary findings. "I found at least 3 prior pediatric records with similar unexplained burns," she said softly. "These children never returned for follow-up, and the explanations were always convenient misdirection." Carla's sigh was audible. "That's concerning," she said. "We need to expand our inquiry beyond the Carter household. I'll coordinate with social services to review those cases and reach out to the families." Elena hung up and printed the relevant records. She arranged them on her desk in chronological order, each chart labeled by date. Then she placed the Carter file at the center, linking it visually to the others. The tableau resembled a detective's corkboard, complete with red strings in her mind. She studied the disparate locations these families represented: north side neighborhoods, suburban cul-de-sacs, inner city apartments. No single socio-economic factor tied them together. She tapped a pencil against her lip. The burns pattern was the only commonality. Contact burns from heated objects left distinctive wounds. Curling irons, radiators, stovetop burners, objects that parents usually kept out of a child's reach. Then she recalled Claire Carter's claim that the damage came from a space heater. Yet the burns on Noah's arms were amorphous, not the cluster pattern of radiant heat exposure. A space heater could not explain the precise contact shapes. Elena made notes: clinic-wide epidemiology review, interview families of similar cases, consult burn unit specialists. She logged a ticket with the hospital's data analytics team to run a deeper search on pediatric burn codes. Then she leaned back and let her mind wander. A pattern could be coincidence, but medicine taught her that rare events seldom lined up by chance. Something more sinister might be at work. The thought made her spine shiver. She switched off her monitor and rose. It was late, but sleep would not come easily. She gathered the charts and headed toward Carla's office. As she walked the quiet corridors, the clinic's vibrant daylight facade gave way to shadows that stretched beneath empty chairs. Each hallway corner felt weighty with unspoken fears. Elena knew the path ahead would require relentless questioning of every assumption. But tracing the pattern was the only way to protect the children in her care and demand unwavering, compassionate truth. The glow of my phone startled me awake. 2:13 a.m., a hospital number flashing on the screen. My heart thudded. Who calls a pediatrician at this hour? Pushing back tangled sheets, I answered before the second ring. Elena Ramirez, a hushed voice asked. It was Nurse Patel. I'm sorry to wake you, but Noah Carter was just admitted to the emergency department. He's here with another burn, more serious this time. I swung my legs off the bed, scrambling for slippers. How bad? I asked, voice thick with sleep and dread. He's febrile and in pain. The burn is on his calf, circular, almost 2 inches across. He's stable but needs your assessment. My pulse raced. I grabbed a robe and car keys, heart hammering. I'm on my way. The drive through deserted streets felt surreal. Streetlights flickered as though urging me forward. In 10 minutes I pounded the ER doors. Nurses led me to a curtained corner where Noah lay on a stretcher, tears dampening his pale cheeks. His mother, Claire, stood nearby, eyes red, clutching her phone as if it were a lifeline. Eleanor, she whispered, relief and fear intertwined. I knelt beside Noah, careful, not to alarm him. The burn on his right calf was red and oozing, the edges sharply defined, contact burn, then infected. Sweetheart, can you tell me what happened? I asked gently. His lip quivered. I tripped by the heater, he murmured, pain clear in his voice. The old excuse echoed. Show me where, I said. He rolled up his pajama leg, revealing a circle the size of a mug's base. It smelled faintly of burnt plastic. My stomach clenched. I turned to the charge nurse. Please start IV antibiotics and schedule a burn unit consult. I'll document everything. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I swear it was an accident, she pleaded. I'll keep him away from that heater. I nodded, though doubts churned. I patted Noah's hand, then stepped outside the curtain. My phone buzzed with a text from Carla. I'm pulling records. We need to escalate to protective services. I tapped back. On it. ER now. My breath came fast. Professional duty urged immediate reporting. I returned to Noah's side. Claire, I'm calling Child Protective Services now, as required by law. They'll need details. Her face drained of color. I understand, she whispered. I met her gaze steadily. I only want Noah to be safe. After ensuring his care plan was underway, I slipped into the nurse's station. With gloved hands, I typed the report. Second unexplained burn this week, pattern consistent with contact injury. I noted infection risk, documented patient condition, and hit send. A confirmation ping followed. A caseworker's name appeared, Alyssa Chen, contacting us within 24 hours. By 3 ME, I was back in my car, exhaustion hitting like a wave. Sleep felt impossible. I drove home slowly, replaying the scene. Noah's frightened eyes, Claire's panicked apology, the circle-shaped burn. It was no accident. At home, I placed my stethoscope on the kitchen counter and found a note from my mentor, Dr. Soto, reminding me of my duty. Courage speaks for those who cannot. I let the word settle. I finally crawled back into bed just as dawn's pale light crept through the blinds. My last thoughts before sleep claimed me were of Noah, helpless, hurt, relying on me to shine light on the shadows beneath his white coat. My duty was clear: trace every pattern, break the cycle, and keep fighting for every child's safety. The hallway outside the burn unit was quiet in the early morning light, fluorescent panels humming softly overhead. Dr. Elena Ramirez paused before the double doors, smoothing her lab coat and reminding herself why she was here. Despite the exhaustion of last night's emergency admission, she needed confirmation from an expert, someone who could corroborate her concerns and strengthen the case for reporting. Inside, the scent of antiseptic mingled with the faint sweetness of healing ointments. Dr. Michael Soto stood by a private bed where a young patient's father read a story aloud. Noticing Elena, he excused himself and motioned her into the consultation room. His eyes were steady and calm, the bearing of someone who had seen every kind of injury a child could endure. "Elena," he said, offering a coffee from the counter. "You sounded urgent on the phone. How is our little patient?" She set her chart on his desk. "He's stable now. Antibiotics, dressing changes, but I need your expert take on his pattern of burns." Michael slid a tablet toward her, and she opened the image files she had meticulously organized. The first row showed faint, linear scars on Noah Carter's ribs. The second, an infected circular burn on his calf. Michael zoomed in, tracing the border of the most recent lesion. "Look at the uniform edge," he murmured. "This is contact with a flat, heated surface, like the base of a curling straightener, or perhaps a heated metal tool. And this older mark," he tapped the rib scars, "is consistent with brief, repeated contact. Different stages of healing suggest a recurring cause." Elena nodded. "His mother claims space heater contact, but the shapes and locations don't fit. He's 9, he wouldn't press himself against a heater so precisely. And the timing, 3 clinic visits in 10 days. Michael closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with resolve. "This isn't accidental. Medically, we classify these as suspicious burns. Reporting is warranted." His tone was the reassurance Elena needed. "I'll examine him now, confirm temperature of contact injuries, and document in detail. My notes will carry weight." They walked together to Noah's room. Claire Carter watched anxiously as they entered. Michael crouched beside the bed, greeting Noah with a gentle smile. "Hi, buddy. Mind if I take a look?" Claire offered a flimsy nod. Michael inspected the calf burn first, palpating the surrounding skin to assess depth. He measured the lesion and traced its circumference with a sterile marker. Then he examined the rib area, asking Noah to lift his shirt. The boy complied obediently, eyes downcast. Elena observed Michael's practiced movements. He noted the scars' shapes, took high-resolution photographs from multiple angles, and dictated annotations into his voice recorder. "Deep second-degree burn, likely inflicted by a heated object between 140 and 160 degrees C," he murmured. "The linear wounds align with edges of a flat metal. The recurrence suggests intentional contact over time." Claire's lips trembled. "It was the heater, I swear." He leaned too close. Michael straightened, meeting her gaze. "I understand that explanation, but clinically, these injuries do not match ambient heat sources. A space heater's grill leaves diffuse, often partial thickness burns, not uniform circles or straight lines." His empathy softened his words. "I'm not saying you hurt him. I'm saying we must protect him while we investigate." Claire looked away, tears slipping down her cheeks. Noah's shoulders tensed. Elena placed a reassuring hand on the boy's blanket. Michael continued, "I'll compile a consult report today. We'll send it to Child Protective Services along with Elena's initial findings, including the infection risk. It will provide the second opinion required by protocol." After he left, Elena tucked Michael's report into her chart. His expert language, pattern indicative of intentional contact burns, would lend authority she needed. She returned to the nurse's station, where Carla Nguyen was waiting. Carla's eyes flicked to the consult report. "This strengthens our case," she said quietly. "I'll schedule our home assessment for tomorrow." Elena stepped out into the corridor's cool air, exhaustion giving way to relief. The second opinion was not just confirmation of her suspicions, it was a shield against doubt. She cradled her coffee cup, thinking of Noah's small frame in that bed, and of the reports that now carried the power to compel action. The fight for his safety had gained momentum, and she would see it through until shadows beneath white coats were banished, and a child could heal in truth and security. Elena paused outside the door where Carla Nguyen had met with social services. The corridor stretched ahead in muted blues and greys, punctuated by posters reminding staff to wash hands and watch for signs of neglect. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself for the next round of questions. Crossing her arms, she reviewed the day's events in her mind. Quiet ER admission at 2:13 a.m., the burn unit consultation, document reviews, phone calls, protocol exchanges. Each step had inched her closer to answers, but now, standing here, she wondered how many more questions remained unanswered. A soft click announced Nurse Patel's approach. She draped her badge on the railing and offered Elena a cup of lukewarm coffee. "Long day?" she asked. Elena accepted the cup gratefully. "Long week," she admitted. "I just left Carla's meeting with the CPS caseworker. They'll visit the Carter home tomorrow, but I want to ensure every detail is ready." Patel nodded. "I updated Noah's vital signs and prepped his pediatric record. I can run through the imaging sequence with you if that helps." "Thank you," Elena said, appreciating Patel's unwavering support. "Let's do that in a few minutes. I need to speak with Dr. Lopez first." They continued down the corridor toward the adolescent medicine wing. Elena thought about her earlier encounter with Dr. Michael Soto, whose expertise had validated her suspicions. She needed another perspective, one with administrative weight. She found Dr. Nadia Lopez at her office door, phone pressed to her ear as she conferred with a resident about an upcoming conference. When Nadia recognized Elena, she ended the call with a promise to catch up later. "Elena, how are you holding up?" Nadia asked, stepping aside to let her in. Elena outlined the Carter case succinctly. Burns on rigid patterns, conflicting explanations from the mother, infection risk, the second-degree variety. Nadia listened intently, brow furrowed. "Your documentation is compelling," she said. "But the delay between visits worries me. Have you considered flagging similar charts and alerting clinic leadership? An interdisciplinary training might help others spot these patterns earlier." Elena took notes as Nadia sketched out ideas. On her whiteboard, mandatory quarterly seminars, a peer review committee for unusual pediatric injuries, cross-departmental sharing of burn unit consults. Each suggestion felt like a lifeline. "I'll draft a proposal for grand rounds," Nadia offered. "We need administrative buy-in." Eleanor left Nadia's office feeling buoyed. As she re-entered the main corridor, she heard raised voices. Near the nurse's station, she quickened her pace and found a junior resident, Dr. Sun, speaking in clipped tones to a security officer. The resident glanced at Elena. "Dr. Ramirez," she said, relief in her eyes. "I ran into the Carter family in the lobby. Mother insisted on leaving with Noah against medical advice. They tried to walk out with him." Elena's heart lurched. "Where are they now?" she demanded. The security officer checked his radio. "They're at the entrance doors. I've asked them to wait." Elena hurried forward and intercepted Claire Carter just as she was ushering Noah toward the sliding doors. Claire's face flickered between defiance and fear. Elena placed a gentle hand on Claire's arm. "Claire, please, you must stay until our social worker arrives," she urged. Carla appeared beside them, authority in her voice. "Child Protective Services needs to complete the home safety assessment first." Claire glanced at Noah, whose small frame trembled. Then she sank to her knees and clutched his hand. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll wait." Relief washed over Elena. As security escorted them to the waiting area, she caught sight of Father Thomas at the end of the corridor, offering a comforting hand to another parent. His calm presence reminded her of why she fought these battles, to create safe spaces where families could heal rather than flee. She nodded to him, silent gratitude passing between them. Returning to the nurse's station, Elena found Patel and Dr. Sun waiting. Patel handed her a tablet with updated patient notes. Dr. Sun added, "I'll stay with Noah tonight. I'll monitor his burn dressing changes and vital signs." Elena exhaled, the corridor's questions momentarily answered. She typed an email to social work, confirming tomorrow's visit. Then she paused and looked down the lengthy hallway, its muted tones now alive with shared purpose. Coffee cups and white coats, whispered strategies and firm reassurances. The corridor had become more than a passage between rooms. It was the spine of a network committed to protecting children. As she walked toward the elevator, her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Soto. "Heard you secured the home visit. Proud of you." Elena smiled, steeling herself for tomorrow's challenges. Each question in the corridor edged her closer to truth, closer to safety for Noah and the other children hidden in plain sight, and she would keep asking until every shadow was exposed. Dr. Elena Ramirez entered the quiet hospital room just after dawn, her footsteps soft on the linoleum floor. Noah Carter lay curled in the pediatric bed, his eyes closed, but damp tracks on his cheeks revealing restless tears in the night. The harsh white lighting highlighted both fresh bandages on his calf and faint scars on his forearms and ribs. Elena's breath caught at the sight of those delicate carvings on vulnerable skin, invisible to the casual observer. She knelt beside him, gently brushing his hair back before whispering, "Good morning, Noah. How are you feeling?" His breathing was shallow, and Elena could sense how fear still lived in the pauses between his breaths. She reached for the bedside chart, scanning her detailed notes before speaking softly into the silence. "Nurse Patel will be in soon for a vitals check, and I'll review your dressings." The mention of routine seemed to ease his tension, marginally, but his small shoulders trembled at the reference to home. She knew those scars were more than physical wounds. They were silent testimonies of hidden pain. In the hallway, Carla waited with a file in hand, her face lined with empathy and professional resolve. Elena stepped out and explained the overnight developments: fresh burns, infection concerns, and the boy's emotional fragility. Carla's voice was low but firm as she nodded. "We'll prioritize a safety assessment at their home today. I'll need full cooperation from the family to ensure Noah's well-being." Elena shook her head slightly, acknowledging the delicate balance between protection and trust. Together, they reviewed a list of questions designed to uncover any environmental hazards or behaviors that might have caused the injuries. Back inside, Elena returned to Noah's bedside. He looked up at her, eyes glassy with unspoken confusion, his small hand clutching a ragged blanket. She offered him a gentle smile and a soft question. "Can you tell me about your nighttime dreams?" His lower lip quivered as he spoke. "I see shadows, and sometimes the heat comes back." He pressed a trembling finger against his calf. Silent tears slipped down his face as he struggled to find words. Elena swallowed, heart aching, and said, "It's okay, Noah. You're safe here. We will help you." The child psychologist, Dr. Sophia Reyes, arrived later that morning with her notepad and a calm demeanor. Elena introduced her and recounted the medical findings. "He's exhibiting signs of acute stress," Dr. Reyes said after a brief observation, noting Noah's guarded posture and reliance on that blanket for comfort. She guided Noah through a gentle drawing exercise, encouraging him to illustrate safe places in his life. As he sketched, his small figure trembled, and colored lines crossed out parts he could not articulate. Dr. Reyes observed each hesitation, scribbling notes about trauma bonding and trust issues. Later, Elena sat at her desk, surrounded by medical journals open to articles on pediatric burn trauma. Her eyes drifted to the page detailing how children often conceal abuse, masking fear with compliance. She thought of the silent tears in Noah's dreams and the stark lines of his burns. In her mind, those cuts and curves had become Morse code, spelling out a story he could not speak aloud. Eleanor closed the journal and drafted a referral for psychiatry alongside the existing medical treatment plan. She added a note: assess for post-traumatic stress and family therapy. That evening, as rain tapped against her car roof, Elena called Dr. Reyes for an update. The psychologist's voice reported Noah's verbal breakthrough. He had described being frightened of his stepfather's shadow at bedtime. The detail fit the pattern of neglect and fear she had missed. Elena thanked Dr. Reyes and, in car, hands on the steering wheel, letting the rain blur streetlights. In the storm, she allowed herself to feel the weight of every hidden scar. She knew the next step was guiding Noah towards safety, beyond the walls of hospitals, into a place where tears could fade, and where hidden courage rises to heal quietly. Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the windows of the Carter home as I parked my car a discreet distance away. Nurse Patel sat beside me in her compact sedan, binoculars trained on the front door. We both wore plain clothes, no badges, no white coats. The air was thick with humidity, and cicadas droned in the hedgerow. This was not a typical scene for a pediatrician, but after 3 unexplained burns and Noah's frightened whispers, taking measured steps was vital. Carl Nguyen had arranged for Child Protective Services to begin a covert observation. She would arrive shortly in an unmarked SUV. Until then, it fell on us to notice patterns that might otherwise go unnoticed. Patel tapped lightly on my arm. "Claire just pulled into the driveway," she whispered. A sedan swept in, and Claire Carter emerged, her expression bland as she maneuvered a stroller. No Noah in sight. We watched as she lifted the stroller, hood, and carried a laundry basket inside. Moments later, she returned, glancing left and right, before slipping out again without closing the door fully. Patel frowned. "That's odd. I'd expect more caution if she knew someone might watch." I keyed my phone quietly. "Carla's 10 minutes out. Stay sharp." Claire re-emerged, this time walking with deliberate calm but circling back. To the front door, phone pressed to her ear. The gate struck me as rehearsed. Pause, retreat, glance. Patel zoomed with binoculars. "She seems tense, like she's expecting someone," Patel murmured. We fell silent, eyes on the doorway. Carla's SUV rolled up, and 2 caseworkers emerged, arms laden with documentation. They approached Claire under the guise of routine follow-up. From our vantage, we couldn't hear their words, but Claire's posture shifted from guarded to brittle compliance. The CSS pair stepped inside, and the door closed. Moments stretched. Tree shadows danced on the driveway. I checked my watch. 15 minutes passed before the door opened again. Claire's face was pale, her gaze pinned on the ground as she led Casey to a living room I could glimpse through the glass. She placed the basket on the couch and withdrew her phone as if to dial again. Then she looked up and scanned the room. Patel nudged me. "Noah hasn't appeared." I swallowed. 2 weeks ago I might have accepted a late arrival, but every detail now mattered. I dialed Carla. "Any sign of the boy? He should be present during this." Her whispered reply confirmed my worry. "They claim he's at his father's for The weekend, no record of visitation. Claire's father's house claim was new. The original intake listed only Claire as caregiver. Father traveling. That discrepancy, father's unverified weekend pickup, smelled of fabrication. Patel twisted the binocular focus toward the upstairs windows. I see movement in the second-floor hallway. I leaned forward, heart thumping. A small figure shuffled by, hooded in a t-shirt, head low. A flash of blonde hair caught the light. "That's him," I whispered. Claire stood behind him, hand on his shoulder, guiding him back out of view. The tableau confirmed my suspicion. Controlled access to the child, unexplained pickup, shifting stories. I exhaled slowly. "Carla," I spoke into the phone. "Evidence of non-custodial transfer. We need to escalate immediately." Patel closed her binoculars. "What's next?" she asked softly. I squared my shoulders. "We inform Dr. Lopez and the on-call investigator. Prepare for an unannounced welfare check. Social services needs to see documentation of both burns and inconsistent visitation." Patel nodded, gloving her hands. "I'll handle the medical records and photos." As the sun sank lower, the driveway remained empty. We watched until Claire and Noah reappeared. This time, Claire carried Noah's small backpack and clasped his hand. He limped slightly, favoring his burned calf. His gaze lifted toward the window locking onto our sedan. His eyes widened. Claire hastened them toward the car, oblivious to the surveillance. I locked eyes with Patel. "Tomorrow morning, home assessment under CPS authority. And we'll need to coordinate with law enforcement if they refuse entry." Patel tapped her pen. "Understood." Night approached. We drove away silently, the Carter home receding behind us. The stakeout had delivered unspoken testimony, inconsistencies in Claire's explanations, a new claim of fatherly care unverified by records, and a terrified child trapped in shifting narratives. The next steps would demand swift, coordinated action. And for Noah's sake, I resolved that this silent vigil would lead to voices raised against hidden scars. Elena rang the doorbell at the Carter residence, clipboard in hand, heart pounding as she glanced at Carla Nguyen standing beside her. Sunlight caught the CPS badge pinned to Carla's chest, a silent reminder of the legal authority behind this. "A visit," Claire Carter answered, her expression bland but eyes flickering with apprehension. Behind her, Noah peered from the hallway, clutching the banister as if for protection. "Good morning, Claire," Elena began, voice steady but firm. "We're here for the home safety assessment." She held out her badge. "I'm Dr. Elena Ramirez, pediatrician. This is Carla Nguyen from Child Protective Services and Officer Martinez from the local police." A uniformed officer stepped into view, his presence amplifying the gravity of the moment. Claire's lips pressed thinly as she stepped aside, allowing them entry. The front door closed with a quiet finality. Elena inhaled the air inside. Scented. Candles masked something more acrid beneath the surface. The living room looked ordinary. Family photos on the mantel, a child's stuffed bear on the sofa. But Elena's instincts told her danger lurked in hidden corners. Carla began her scripted questions, while Officer Martinez watched for non-verbal cues. "Claire, may we see where Noah spends most of his time?" The mother led them through the house, nodding perfunctorily. "He likes the living room and sometimes plays in the den." Carla marked notes as they passed a closed door labeled laundry. Elena noted its proximity to the heater plug and made a mental flag. They reached the den, where a small collection of toys lay in a neat circle on the carpet. Noah hovered by his mother's side, eyes wide. Elena crouched to his level. "Hi, Noah. I'd like to check where you sleep and play, okay?" He nodded, pulling free of Claire's grasp. Claire led them upstairs. The hallway walls bore a toddler's handprints framed in paint. In Noah's room, the windowsill carried no locks, and the main electrical outlet was within reach of a climbing child. Elena's chest tightened. "Claire, these windows need child-proof latches and plug covers are required here." She pointed at the bare socket by his bed. Claire's face went pale as Carla added, "State regulations mandate secure latches and outlet covers in every room where a child resides. We'll provide these free of charge." The mother swallowed. I didn't realize," she mumbled. Elena moved to the heater in Noah's room, a portable model with an exposed grill. She laid a measuring tape beside it. "This was a hazard last week," she said softly. "Noah's burns match this grill pattern. He could have fallen against it." Claire's gaze fell to the floor. "He's clumsy," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Claire, given the repeated injuries and inconsistent explanations, we need to ask, have these burns occurred here, intentionally or accidentally?" He kept his tone neutral, yet authoritative. Claire's breath hitched as she stared at the heater. Elena spoke gently. "I'm not accusing you, Claire. I'm here to ensure Noah's safety. If something happened, we need honest details so we can help him." The mother's shoulders trembled. Noah turned away, wrapping his arms around himself. Elena placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Claire closed her eyes, voice cracking. I didn't want to lose him," she whispered. "He wouldn't listen. I got angry. I pressed him against the heater. It was just once. I swear, only once." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she met Elena's eyes. "I panicked afterward and tried to cover it up. Then I didn't know how to stop." Carla stepped forward, offering a tissue. "Thank you for telling the truth, Claire. It's hard, but your honesty means we can address his injuries appropriately. We can arrange support, parenting classes, anger management. Right now, Noah needs medical care and a safe environment." Elena watched Claire crumple to her knees beside Noah, wrapping her arms around him. The boy stared at the floor, silent shock and relief mingling in his expression. Officer Martinez nodded to Carla. "We'll document this statement. Claire, you'll need to cooperate with the safety plan. If Noah is to remain in your care, these measures must be in place immediately." Claire's sobs trembled into quiet agreement. Eleanor crouched to examine Noah's arm gently, checking the new IV line. "We'll adjust his medications for pain and schedule wound care. You're safe now, Noah. We're here to help." He met her eyes with a small, tentative nod. As they prepared to leave, Carla explained the next steps: installation of safety devices, mandatory follow-up visits, and a scheduled meeting with family services. Elena stayed by Noah's side until the socket covers arrived, her presence a shield against isolation. Outside, the afternoon sun bore down, but inside the Carter home, truth had at last pierced the shadows. For Claire, confessing her mistake was the first step toward healing. For Noah, it meant silent scars could finally begin to fade. Dr. Elena Ramirez opened her laptop and navigated to the secure patient portal, ready to craft the formal pediatrician's report that would become central to Noah Carter's case. The morning sunlight filtered through her office window as she pulled up his medical records. 3 clinic visits marked by unexplained burns, a tense emergency admission at 2:13 a.m., a detailed burn unit consultation, and a recent home assessment. Revealing safety hazards, she inhaled deeply, knowing this document had to be precise, thorough, and irrefutable. She began by summarizing Noah's presentation. A healthy 9-year-old boy brought in for a routine checkup on June 5th, 10 a.m., with vague complaints of burning sensations on both forearms. The initial examination had revealed faint, linear scars inconsistent with accidental contact. She referenced her photograph catalog, high-resolution images captured on June 5th, showing discrete patterns of healed and healing burns. Each entry included date, location on body, dimensions measured in millimeters, and descriptive notes indicating possible contact with heated metal surfaces. Next, She chronicled Noah's second visit on June 7th, when he appeared to the emergency department with an infected circular burn on his right calf. She quoted the ER nurse's triage notes and the burn unit consultation by Dr. Michael Soto. Dr. Soto's expert opinion stated, lesion consistent with brief contact burn inflicted by flat-heated object at 140-160 degrees C. Pattern and recurrence suggest non-accidental injury. Her report included his direct quote and attached his consult note as an appendix. She then outlined the late-night call on June 8th, when Nurse Patel discovered the fresh burn at home and arranged immediate hospitalization. The report noted that Claire Carter's account of accidental heater contact failed to account for the circular lesion's uniform edges. She documented her own observations. Child's explanation passive, caregiver's account inconsistent with injury morphology. The report proceeded to describe the joint home visit on June 9th, conducted with Carla Nguyen of Child Protective Services and Officer Martinez of the local police. She detailed environmental hazards discovered, unsecured electrical outlets within child's reach, absence of window locks, close proximity of exposed space heater with burn-prone grill. She recounted Claire's initial denial of intentional harm, followed by partial admission under professional questioning. Caregiver acknowledged applying pressure to child's limb against heater surface during an episode of anger, then attempting to conceal injuries. Elena attached a verbatim transcript of Claire's statement, recorded by Carla Nguyen, emphasizing chronology and context. Elena devoted the following section to Noah's psychosocial assessment by child psychologist Dr. Sophia Reyes. She incorporated Dr. Reyes' notes on Noah's acute stress reactions, nocturnal terrors describing heat and confinement, drawing patterns of dark boxes around his family home indicating fear zones, clinginess to transitional object, blanket to self-soothe. She appended Dr. Reyes' recommendation for trauma-informed therapy and outlined the integrated treatment plan. Weekly psychology sessions, referral to pediatric psychiatry for evaluation of potential post-traumatic stress disorder, coordination with social services for family counseling. In a separate heading, Elena summarized her clinical conclusions. Persistent pattern of contact, burns inconsistent with accidental etiology. Injuries inflicted during repeated episodes of caregiver misbehavior, infection risk high due to presentation delays, psychological sequelae evident, mandatory reporting criteria met, child at substantial risk without intervention. She concluded with a statement of professional obligation. As a licensed pediatrician, I affirm that I have reviewed all available records, conducted direct examinations, consulted relevant experts, and coordinated with CPS. I recommend continued protective services oversight, provisional removal of caregivers' unsupervised custody privileges, and placement of Noah in a safe temporary refuge pending family assessment. She typed her credentials and signature, then securely uploaded the report to the state's child welfare electronic system and emailed copies to her supervisor, the hospital's legal department, and Carla Nguyen. Elena closed her laptop, her shoulders relaxing slightly. The pediatrician's report was complete, a meticulously documented account designed to safeguard Noah's health and well-being. She rose, stretched tired limbs, and prepared for the next phase of care coordination. In that moment, she knew she had fulfilled her duty, transforming silent suffering into an authoritative voice for a vulnerable child. Dr. Elena Ramirez settled into her office late that afternoon, sifting through emails related to Noah Carter's case. She felt the weariness in her limbs, the relentless pace tugging at her resolve. Just as she clicked refresh, the notification pinged, a message from Principal Robert Griffith. Its subject line read, "Urgent, support for child welfare protocol." Intrigued, Elena opened it. Robert offered to host a faculty meeting that evening to discuss improving school-clinic collaboration on suspected abuse cases. He'd reached out to the superintendent, legal counsel, and local child advocacy organizations, and secured a spot for Elena to present the Carter case anonymously, focusing on patterns, challenges, and best practices. It was an extraordinary vote of confidence and support. Within the hour, Elena joined the gathering in the school library. Teachers gathered around folding tables, their faces weary but curious. A projector displayed her slides, medical images of burns anonymized, timelines, consultation excerpts. She outlined the Carter case, unexplained injuries, caregivers' conflicting explanations, the home safety assessment, and the pediatrician's report. She emphasized the necessity of interprofessional communication, documentation, and early intervention. As she spoke, Elena noticed nods of recognition. Mrs. Henderson, Noah's third-grade teacher, raised her hand. I saw subtle signs. His reluctance at recess, the way he hesitated when I offered extra help, she said softly. I wish I'd shared those notes with you sooner. Elena smiled, grateful for the admission. Your observations are vital. Combining medical and educational insights strengthens our response. Next, Counsellor Carla Winters described her own approach to screening children during routine counselling sessions. Children reveal so much through art and play, she explained. I'll be more vigilant about sharing concerning patterns with the clinic. The collaborative tone was uplifting. Then Robert introduced an unexpected guest, Detective Lisa Morales from the Lakefield Police Department. Her presence underscored how law enforcement could partner in non-emergency welfare checks. She reviewed legal considerations and explained how police officers were now trained to recognize pediatric burn patterns and transport families to appropriate medical and social services rather than jail. After the presentations, the group broke into workshops. Elena joined a table where Coach Ramirez, the PE instructor, apologized for not noticing Noah's favoring one leg during gym class. He vowed to report any future limping or hesitancy. Across the room, the chemistry teacher offered to add a brief safety module on burns and first aid to her curriculum, teaching children how injuries heal and when to seek help. At the end of the evening, Robert closed the meeting by announcing that the district would fund an interagency task force on child welfare, convening monthly to review cases, refine protocols, and provide ongoing training. He praised Elena's courage and expertise for bringing medical insight into the educational setting. We're in this together, he said firmly. No child should fall through the cracks. Elena drove home feeling an unfamiliar warmth, a blossoming sense of communal purpose. She recalled earlier days in her career when reporting a single suspected case felt like shouting into a void. Now, halfway across town, teachers, counselors, law enforcement, and administrators had rallied. She glanced at her phone, where a text awaited from Dr. Michael Soto. Well done, Eleanor. You've inspired more than you know. She typed a quick reply of thanks and reflection, then sat quietly for a moment, letting the solidarity wash over her. That night, she dreamt of Noah's tentative smile, the small victory of trust regained. She awoke at dawn, head clear and spirit light, ready to coordinate next steps, follow-up therapy appointments, school reintegration plans, and the creation of a district clinic hotline for urgent consultations. An unexpected ally had emerged in Robert Griffith, but in truth, the entire community had become her allies. Together, they would ensure that hidden scars could no longer remain silent. Dr. Elena Ramirez arrived early at her clinic to begin the methodical work of gathering every piece of evidence related to Noah Carter's injuries. She retrieved the case binder, now bulging with photographs, consultation notes, home visit transcripts, and email exchanges, and spread its contents across a conference table. Each document held a fragment of Noah's story: dates, descriptions, measurements. She arranged them chronologically, creating a narrative thread that traced the escalation from faint forearm scars to a dangerous calf burn. She opened her laptop and pulled up the hospital's secure imaging archive. The high-resolution photos of each lesion formed a visual timeline: June 5th's linear forearm burns, June 7th's infected calf injury, and the rib scars noted during the initial assessment. Using medical imaging software, Elena annotated each image, marking shapes, depths, and color gradients. These annotations would accompany her report, providing objective data for social services and legal teams. Next, she reviewed the trifold interview transcripts. Carl Nguyen's recording of Claire Carter's admissions, first blaming a space heater, then acknowledging accidental contact during anger, was critical. Elena highlighted inconsistencies. Dates mentioned in interviews clashed with clinical notes, and the description of heater contact failed to match burn morphology. Each discrepancy strengthened the argument that the caregiver's account was unreliable. Elena then integrated the burn unit consult from Dr. Michael Soto. She formatted his expert opinion into a clear, standalone exhibit. Contact burn inflicted by heated metal surface, pattern consistent with deliberate application of force. Nay, she coupled his findings with a literature citation on pediatric burn patterns, citing peer-reviewed journals that corroborated his analysis. This scholarly backing would lend weight in any judicial proceedings. She moved on to environmental evidence. From the home visit, she extracted photographs of the unsecured outlet, the exposed space heater, and the child's reachable window. She overlaid these images with safety regulation excerpts, child-proofing standards from state law, outlet cover requirements, and heater usage guidelines. Annotated floor plan diagrams showed the heater's proximity to the child's play area and bed, underscoring risk zones. Elena then sought behavioral corroboration. She requested classroom notes from Mrs. Henderson and Coach Ramirez regarding Noah's reluctance at recess and limping during PE. She scanned their comments, hesitates to join games, favors right leg, and added them to a behavioral timeline. These observations tied the physical evidence to the child's lived experience, demonstrating how his injuries impacted everyday life. Finally, she compiled the psychological assessment from Dr. Sophia Reyes. The child's drawings, shaded dark, boxes around home, figures pressed against warm surfaces, offered symbolic evidence of his trauma. Elena included these sketches, accompanied by Reyes' interpretation of anxiety symptoms and recommended therapy schedules. The holistic view of Noah's medical, environmental, and emotional state formed an unassailable body of evidence. Standing before the organized dossiers, Elena reflected on the journey, from uneasy first observations to a comprehensive, multidisciplinary portfolio. Each piece, clinical images, expert analyses, caregiver admissions, environmental hazards, behavioral notes, and psychological insights, wove together into a cohesive argument for Noah's protection. She saved her final draft as a secured PDF and distributed it to Carl Nguyen, Detective Morales, and hospital legal counsel, confident that the evidence would ensure decisive intervention and safeguard Noah's future. The wail of sirens echoed down the quiet suburban street as two marked patrol cars and an unmarked welfare van pulled into the Carter driveway. I parked behind them, heart pounding, alongside Carl Nguyen and Officer Martinez. Sunlight glinted off flashing lights, lending gravity to every movement. Claire Carter stood on the porch, arms wrapped around Noah, her posture rigid as she watched us approach. Officer Martinez stepped forward, badge displayed, and called out, "Claire Carter, we're here to complete the welfare check." "Oh." His voice was firm but respectful. Claire's lips trembled. Noah glanced up at her with wide, uncertain eyes. Carla offered a gentle nod of reassurance. Inside, the house felt claustrophobic under the weight of official scrutiny. The officers spread out. One began photographing the unsecured outlets and window latches. Another examined the portable heater earlier marked as a hazard. Carla interviewed Claire in the living room, her questions methodical. "When did Noah last sleep? Who else has access? Can you explain these burn patterns?" I followed Officer Martin into Noah's room. He knelt beside the bed and called softly, "Noah, your doctor's here too. Can you show us where you sleep?" The boy stepped forward, drawing his blanket closer. I crouched beside him, offering a comforting smile before pointing to the window latch and heater placement. "We're making sure your room is safe." Outside, I could hear Carla asking Claire about the father's weekend visits claimed earlier. Claire's voice wavered. "He sometimes picks Noah up for a day trip," she admitted. Carla consulted her notes, then asked for proof of any court order or agreement, which Claire could not provide. The silence that followed spoke volumes. In the den, Officer Martinez found the laundry basket from yesterday, now empty, yet a faint smell of burnt fabric lingered. He bagged it as evidence. I watched through the doorway, stifling a pang of sorrow for Noah's small world reduced to a crime scene. Downstairs, the lead detective Lisa Morales joined us, observing the documented burn injuries affixed to the wall as photographs. She scrutinized them, then met my eyes. I handed her a copy of Michael Soto's consult and the pediatric report. She flipped through, nodding. "Precisely what we needed," she said quietly. By mid-afternoon, Claire was escorted to her living room for a recorded statement. I stood nearby as Carla guided her gently. "This is your opportunity to explain. We're here to ensure Noah's safety first and foremost." Claire's shoulders shook as she recounted what had happened. Her admission was interspersed with sobs, her regret raw. Noah sat on the stairs, tucking his feet under him, listening. Outside, I watched the welfare van's door open. A social worker emerged carrying paperwork. She approached the front door to seal the decision. Noah would be temporarily placed with a foster family or kin. My throat tightened at the thought of separation, but I knew it was necessary. A frightened child needed refuge. As the sun dipped lower, Detective Morales gave a curt nod. "We've completed our assessment. I'll file the report citing non-accidental injury and unsafe environment. We'll present to the district attorney for potential charges. In the meantime, Noah's placement is secured." She turned to me. "Thank you, Doctor. Your diligence made this possible." I allowed myself one slow exhale. Justice had edged closer to reality. Noah was lifted gently into the welfare van by a kind social worker who spoke softly. "We'll take good care of you." He looked back once, catching my eye. I gave him a reassuring nod, mouthing, "Be safe." As the vehicles departed in convoy, Claire stood on the porch, tears running down her face, watching her son go. I turned away before she saw me flinch. The Carter home grew silent again, but the echoes of evidence and intervention remained. In the distance, Noah's small frame receded, carried towards safety. And I knew that in that moment, we had honored the responsibility that had brought us here, protecting a child whose hidden scars could finally begin to heal. The courthouse waiting room hummed with hushed conversation as I settled into a hard plastic chair, folder in my lap. Carla Nguyen sat beside me, reviewing her notes on the hearing schedule. Across from us, family members and legal advocates whispered urgently, their faces a mosaic of hope and apprehension. Today was Noah Carter's first hearing before the juvenile court judge, the moment when his fate and that of his mother, Claire, would begin to be formally decided. When the bailiff called our case, we followed a line of families into a panelled courtroom. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, bathing the oak bench where Judge Whitman presided. He appeared stern, yet compassionate, as he called the docket. Claire Carter entered next, flanked by her attorney and a social worker, her eyes rimmed red with worry. Behind them, Noah's guardian ad litem, an advocate appointed to speak for his best interests, led him by the hand. He wore a sky-blue sweater over a collared shirt, his posture stiff with nerves. The judge began with protocol, confirming identities and asking if all parties were present. When he reached Noah's case, he paused, studying the boy's quiet figure. "Dr. Ramirez," he said, turning to me, "I understand you have prepared a medical report. Please summarize your findings for the court." I stood, smoothing my lab coat under my jacket, and delivered a concise overview. The timelines of unexplained burns, expert consult confirming contact injuries, the infected lesion requiring hospitalization, the caregiver's admissions, and the home assessment revealing environmental hazards and safety violations. I emphasized Noah's medical and psychological needs and recommended protective measures. Claire's attorney objected briefly, arguing that the mother had shown remorse and was committed to making changes. Judge Whitman allowed the objection, noting the need to balance family preservation with child safety. Then he called Carla Nguyen to present the social services perspective. Carla outlined the CPS's determination that Noah could not safely remain in Claire's unsupervised care and recommended temporary removal and placement with a foster family or kinship caregiver. She detailed the safety plan, stipulating supervised visits contingent on Claire's compliance with parenting classes and home modifications. Next, the guardian ad litem spoke directly for Noah. "Your Honor," she said, voice steady, "I have met with Noah and assessed his wishes. He reports feeling frightened at home and finds comfort with relatives. He desires to remain in a safe environment until he feels secure." The judge nodded gravely, acknowledging the child's voice in the legal process. He then addressed Claire, asking her how she intended to meet the requirements for reunification, parenting education, therapy participation, and home safety improvements. Claire's voice trembled as she affirmed her commitment, tears flowing, as she described her plan to attend anger management sessions and install all recommended safety devices. After deliberation, Judge Whitman delivered his initial ruling. He would grant CPS's petition for temporary protective custody. Noah would remain in foster care with Mrs. Delgado, his maternal aunt's close friend, until the next hearing in 6 weeks. Claire would be allowed supervised visits twice weekly at a designated family center, provided she complied with all court-ordered conditions. The judge emphasized the goal of reunification and encouraged all parties to cooperate in Noah's best interest. When court adjourned, Claire approached me with red-rimmed eyes. "Thank you for everything," she whispered, her voice choked with gratitude. I nodded, offering what comfort I could. Noah touched my hand briefly, a small gesture of trust that warmed me more than any word. As we exited the courtroom, I saw Mrs. Henderson waiting in the hallway, her presence a reminder that Noah's school community was also invested in his recovery. Outside, the June breeze carried relief and resolve. The legal system had taken its first formal steps to protect a vulnerable child. For me, the hearing affirmed the power of evidence and collaboration, how medical testimony, social work, advocacy, and the courts could unite to shield a child from harm. As Carla and I walked back toward our cars, I reflected on the path ahead, monitoring compliance, supporting therapy, and ensuring that at the next hearing, Noah's safety and well-being would continue to guide every decision. Noah sat beside his aunt in the family center's bright visitation room, sunlight bouncing off laminate tables and cheerful wall decals of cartoon animals. His small hands tightened on the edge of the table as the clock ticked toward the start of his court-ordered visit with his mother. Across the room, Claire Carter waited, flanked by her attorney and the CPS caseworker. Today was different. Today, Noah would speak for himself. Carla Nguyen, the social worker, knelt beside him and whispered, "This is your chance, Noah. You can tell them how you feel." He nodded, swallowing hard. The door opened and Judge Whitman entered, his robe barely rustling. He offered a gentle smile at Noah. "Hello, Noah," he said. "Would you like to tell me about your visits with your mother?" Noah's lip quivered. He looked across the room at Claire, who sat still, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Drawing a shaky breath, he sat up straighter. "When I go home," he began, voice soft, "I feel scared." He paused, glancing at the laminated chart on the wall behind the judge, as if drawing strength from its calm hues. "Sometimes Mama gets angry and makes me stay by the heater. It's hot, and it hurts." He swallowed. "I was scared it would burn me again like before." The judge inclined his head. "Thank you for telling me, Noah. You're very brave." Claire's eyes filled with tears, and her attorney reached to steady her. The judge turned to Claire. "Do you understand the impact of your actions on your son?" Claire inhaled deeply and nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm so sorry, Noah. I never meant to hurt you." Her voice broke. "I was angry, and I took it out on you. I wish I could take it back." Noah shook his head. "It's okay, Mama. I know you love me." He looked to the judge. "I just want to be safe. I want to come home when I know it's safe." His words, simple yet profound, hung in the room. The judge leaned forward. "Thank you, Noah. Your safety is our priority. We will consider your wishes as we decide about extending your visits." In that moment, Noah's voice carried far beyond the table. His aunt's expression softened with pride. Carla smiled, relief flooding her features. The judge turned to Claire's attorney and CPS counsel to discuss the next steps, but the focus remained on the boy's courageous testimony. Later, as the judge rendered a modified visitation order, allowing overnight stays only when Claire completed a parenting program and installed safety measures at home, Noah felt the tension loosen from his chest. He packed his small backpack, the familiar weight grounding him. Claire approached him. "I will do whatever it takes," she whispered, eyes shining with determination. "I promise you'll be safe." As they walked to the family center exit, Noah glanced at the judge's bench one last time. The echoes of his words lingered in his mind. "I want to be safe." Such simple truth, spoken by a child, carried the power to reshape his family's future. Outside, the afternoon breeze felt gentle against his skin. For the first time in months, he believed that healing might truly begin, and that his own voice, small but unwavering, had helped light the path toward safety and trust. Claire Carter closed the door behind her and turned to face Noah in the quiet hallway outside the family center. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, but inside, a different silence settled. This was the first time she and Noah would be together. Without social workers or lawyers present, a tentative trial behind closed doors. She drew in a shaky breath. "Shall we go for a walk?" she asked, voice soft. Noah nodded, clutching his backpack strap as they stepped into the nearby park. Sunlight filtered through oaks, dappling the path ahead. Claire kept her pace slow, mindful of the weighted tension between them. They found a bench overlooking a small pond. Ducks glided across the surface, ripples trailing behind. Claire placed her purse beside her and sat, patting the spot next to her. Noah perched at the edge, knees drawn together. She turned to him, forcing a reassuring smile. "I'm proud of you today," she said. "You were very brave." He glanced at her, eyes cautious. Claire reached for his hand, fingers brushing his wrist. "I know I hurt you, and I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I've begun my parenting classes. I've installed the child-proof latches and the outlet covers, and the heater is locked away, out of reach." She paused, heart pounding. "I want to make things right." Noah's gaze drifted to the water. "Can we feed the ducks?" he asked quietly. Claire nodded and inched closer, producing a small packet of breadcrumbs from her purse. She offered them to Noah first. He took a piece and tossed it onto the water. The ducks quacked in excitement, converging on the food. Claire watched his small face light up at the familiar joy. After a few moments, Noah tucked his hands into his pockets. "Mom, can I show you my treehouse?" His voice quavered with hopeful anticipation. Claire's heart thudded. They hadn't been to the backyard together since the burns. She swallowed and nodded. "I'd love that." They walked home in companionable silence. The Carter house looked different through Noah's eyes, less a sight of fear, more the potential for new memories. Claire unlocked the front door and flicked on the lights, the smell of Linden soap from the kitchen suddenly comforting. Noah bolted ahead, racing. Up the stairs with eager feet, Claire followed more slowly. She paused outside his bedroom to admire the safety measures. Window locks engaged, heater tagged with a warning sticker, a child-proof door handle on the laundry room. Every precaution reflected her newfound resolve. She crossed the hallway to the treehouse entrance, a sturdy wooden ladder leading to a small platform nestled in the oak outside. Noah stood at the top, looking proud. "I finished building it with Dad last year," he said. His smile was shy but genuine. Claire climbed up beside him, careful of her footing. They sat side by side on the bench his father had installed, the wood smooth from summer suns and autumn rains. Noah handed Claire a small walkie-talkie. "This is our code. Number 1, he explained, pressing a button. A crackle of static answered before his own voice repeated, "Number 1." Claire laughed softly, the sound catching in her throat. She tapped the button too. "Number 1," she replied. They spoke back and forth in simple calls across the yard, laughter echoing between them. Claire realized how much she had missed these ordinary moments. The fear that had once made her lash out was being replaced by cautious joy. As dusk fell, they climbed down and returned inside. Claire tucked Noah into his bunk bed, the soft glow of a nightlight painting shadows on the walls. He settled under the covers, his breathing steady. Claire knelt beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "I love you, Noah," she whispered. "I love you too, Mom," he murmured, eyes drifting shut. Claire sat for a long moment in the dim room, watching his chest rise and fall. Behind closed doors, in these small, unguarded moments, trust was being rebuilt, one quiet apology, one cautious step at a time. And Claire knew this was only the beginning of their journey toward healing together. Soft morning light filtered through the curtains of the therapy room, where Noah sat beside Dr. Sophia Reyes, coloring pencils scattered across the small table. Across from him, Claire Carter watched nervously as her son drew a picture of their home, this time including a tiny red heart over the living room. Noah's movements were careful, deliberate, as if each stroke reminded him that the past need not define the future. "That's beautiful, Noah," Dr. Reyes said, her voice warm. "What does the heart mean?" Noah looked up at his mother, then back at his drawing. "Safe place," he whispered. Claire felt tears prick her eyes, a mix of relief and gratitude that her son could reclaim his sense of security. In the waiting area, I reviewed the latest nursing notes. No new injuries, steady weight gain, improved sleep patterns. Nurse Patel had recorded his morning greeting, "Hi, Dr. Ramirez," with cheerful emphasis, a small triumph over the silences of weeks past. I closed the chart and stepped into the room as the session wrapped up. Claire rose and approached, kneeling beside Noah. She brushed hair from his forehead and offered him a lollipop, a simple ritual they'd reclaimed from our early meetings. It symbolized a return to ordinary childhood moments, no longer overshadowed by fear. Later that day, we convened in a conference room at Westbrook Elementary with Principal Robert Griffith, Counselor Carla Winters, and Mrs. Henderson, Noah's third-grade teacher. The agenda was reintegration, how best to support Noah's gradual return to school routines. We agreed on a phased approach, morning classes only for 2 weeks, a safe space pass, allowing him to visit the nurse's office whenever he felt overwhelmed, and a weekly check-in with Carla. Teachers would incorporate brief grounding exercises at the start of each day, 3 deep breaths, a positive affirmation, something to anchor Noah's sense of calm. Mrs. Henderson volunteered to lead the classroom in a caring circle each Friday, inviting students to share one thing that made them feel safe. That afternoon, I joined Claire and Noah for a home visit to install the last safety devices, a lockable heater cover and a smart monitoring outlet protector that sent alerts to Claire's phone. Watching Claire measure, mark, and secure each device, I saw the intentionality she now brought to parenting, no longer reactive anger, but careful planning. Noah wandered the rooms, pressing buttons and testing latches, his face lighting up at each secure click. Claire knelt beside him, praising his curiosity and affirming that he was helping keep their home safe. The transformation from fear to collaboration brought a gentle warmth to the house's atmosphere. That evening, I received a text from Dr. Soto. "Read your update. Truly inspiring." His words reminded me how far we'd come from those first unsettling visits. I closed my laptop and allowed myself a quiet moment of reflection. A child who once trembled at the thought of heat now built forts unafraid. A mother who once wielded anger as control now wielded tools of safety with pride. A week later, I attended a small celebration in the nurse's office as Carla, Mrs. Henderson, and Nurse Patel presented Noah with a bravery certificate, acknowledging his courage and resilience. His classmates gathered, clapping as he accepted the certificate from Principal Griffith. Noah beamed, cheeks flushed with pride, holding hands with Claire as they shared the moment. The sight of mother and son standing side by side in mutual trust filled the room with quiet joy. That night, Claire sent me a photo of Noah asleep in his bed, a gentle smile on his lips, the red heart from his drawing taped above his pillow. She wrote, "He said today, 'Mommy, I'm safe here.'" And reading her message, I felt the profound truth of healing. Wounds may scar, but trust can rebuild stronger bonds when compassion replaces fear. In that simple declaration, "I am safe here," I recognized the promise we had all worked toward: a child's courageous voice triumphant over silence, a mother's determined heart rewriting their shared story, and a community united in care, ensuring that behind each closed door, healing and hope could flourish. Claire sat stiffly on the courthouse bench, her fingers twisting the cuffs of her sweater as Judge Whitman read aloud the final orders. 6 months supervised probation, completion of a parenting rehabilitation program, and mandatory anger management classes were followed by a stipulation that she have no unsupervised contact with Noah outside scheduled visits for the next year. Each pronouncement felt like a fresh incision, but Claire accepted them without protest, her gaze fixed on the polished wood floor. Noah sat beside his aunt, watching his mother's reaction silently. Later, they reconvened at Claire's childhood home, where her mother, Evelyn, had prepared a simple roast dinner in the familiar kitchen. The hum of the oven and clatter of dishes on the countertop contrasted sharply with the tension in the air. Evelyn greeted them with quiet hospitality, arranging plates around the table's center. Claire's younger brother, Marcus, hovered near the fridge, reluctant to meet anyone's eyes. Noah sat between his aunt and grandmother, coloring quietly at the table's edge. Claire took a deep breath and joined them, lifting her plate as though bracing for conflict. Instead, Evelyn cleared her throat and began in a calm voice. "Claire, this family has always been imperfect. We make mistakes, even serious ones, but we have to own them and do better. Tonight isn't about punishment, it's about healing together." Claire's throat tightened. "I know I hurt Noah," she whispered. "I was angry and scared, and I lashed out. I'm so sorry." Her voice cracked, but Evelyn nodded in encouragement. Marcus exhaled and slid onto the bench beside Claire. He placed a tentative hand on her shoulder. "I was furious when I heard," he admitted. "I wanted to—" He broke off, stroking the wood grain. "But I also realized you needed help." Evelyn passed Claire a dish of roasted vegetables. "This was your favorite as a child," she said kindly. "I won't pretend I understand everything you went through, but I love you. And Noah needs all of us now." Noah raised his head from his coloring. He offered his mother a small drawing, a family portrait with hearts around each person. Claire accepted it with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, sweetheart," she murmured, pressing it to her chest. His honest gesture inflected the moment with hope. After dinner, they moved to the living room, where Dr. Sophia Reyes had arranged cushions in a circle for a family reconciliation session. Soft lamplight illuminated the space as Claire, Marcus, Evelyn, and Noah settled in. Dr. Reyes spoke gently, guiding them through a structured dialogue. Each family member named one hurt they'd experienced and one intention for moving forward. Claire began hesitantly, "I'm sorry for breaking your trust, Noah. I intend to learn patience and to ask for help before I lose control." Marcus followed. "I'm sorry I judged you, Claire. I intend to support you without resentment." Evelyn spoke last. "I'm sorry I didn't see how hard it was for you alone. I intend to be here more often." When it was Noah's turn, he whispered, "I'm sorry I was scared, Mom. I intend to tell you when I'm upset." The ritual closed with a group hug, tentative at first, then strong enough to knit frayed bonds. In that embrace, Claire felt the weight of her mistakes lift slightly, replaced by a sense of responsibility and love. Weeks later, as Claire completed her final parenting class, she found herself more attentive and calm. Marcus and Evelyn took turns supervising her weekend visits with Noah. They laughed together at the zoo, built forts in the living room, and shared ice cream on the porch swing. Claire learned to pause when frustration rose, to breathe and to communicate rather than strike out. On the last evening of supervised visits before unsupervised weekends would begin, Claire tucked Noah into bed at Evelyn's house. He handed her a bracelet made of colored beads, a token he'd crafted in art therapy. "To remind you of our promise," he said sleepily. Claire fastened it around her wrist. "Always," she whispered, kissing his forehead. As she left the room, she paused to watch him drift off peacefully, his trust restored one small promise at a time. Outside, the family's old front door closed softly. Inside, a family's reckoning had transformed pain into commitment, letting healing begin where scars had once defined them. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Westbrook, elementary as autumn leaves danced outside, their gold and crimson hues reflecting a season of change. I arrived that morning carrying a canvas tote filled with art supplies, markers, colored pencils, blank journals, for Noah Carter's first day back as a fully integrated student. The campus buzzed with children's laughter and clattering, lockers, but my focus was on one determined boy whose journey had brought our entire community closer to the light of recovery. I found Noah in the library, settled at a table beside Counselor Carla Winters and his third-grade teacher, Mrs. Henderson. He gripped a brand-new sketchbook, its cover embossed with an encouraging phrase, "Every page is a new beginning." His cheeks flushed when he saw me, and he offered a shy wave. I smiled and set down the tote. "I brought something for you," I said, unveiling the journals. "A place to record your thoughts or draw whatever comes to mind." His blue eyes brightened. "Thank you, Dr. Ramirez." He opened the journal reverently, as though uncovering a treasure. Carla gestured toward a stack of colored pencils. "Pick your favorite colors," she invited. Noah selected a forest green and began sketching broad strokes, forming the outlines of a treehouse. His treehouse, safe and sturdy in the midst of a leafy glade. Later that afternoon, I joined Principal Robert Griffith in his office to review school-wide support measures implemented after the Carter case. He shared data showing a 35% increase in teacher referrals for students displaying concerning behaviors, all followed by timely interventions. We applauded a new counselor position funded by the district, ensuring no child slipped through the cracks. Robert's final report concluded, Noah's experience catalyzed a cultural shift toward proactive care. On campus, Coach Ramirez greeted Noah at recess. He invited him to join a friendly game of basketball, reminding him to pace himself and have fun. Noah's lithe movements around the court, once limping with caution, were now confident strides, his cast long since removed, his spirit unburdened. When he scored a basket, his teammates cheered, and he high-fived the coach with a grin that spoke volumes. That evening, I visited the Carter household to check in on Claire's progress. The living room was warm with the aroma of homemade soup, a weekly Sunday tradition now resumed. Claire balanced stirring a pot on the stove and reviewing her final parenting program certificate. "I received my graduation letter today," she told me proudly. "No more supervised visits. It feels like a new chapter." She beamed at Noah, who perched on the counter munching on carrot sticks. Noah rose and bounded toward me, presenting a leaf he'd pressed into his journal earlier. "Look, Dr. Ramirez," he said, handling it gently. "It's a maple leaf, just like the ones outside." He taped it into the journal, alongside the drawing of his treehouse. I felt a lump in my throat. The simple ritual embodied growth. Roots, reaching deep into secure ground, branches stretching toward possibility. Later still, at home, I reflected on the past year's journey, the unsettling discovery of burns, the late-night admissions, the multidisciplinary teamwork, the legal hearings, the family reckonings. Each chapter had demanded courage, from a boy learning to trust again, from a mother confronting her own failings, and from a community uniting across professions and silences to guard its most vulnerable members. That night, as I tucked my own daughter into bed, I shared Noah's motto, "Every page is a new beginning." She hugged her pillow tightly and whispered, "I like that." I kissed her forehead and realized that hope was contagious. Passing from one child to another, weaving through classrooms, clinics, and homes. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. I arrived at the clinic to find Carla waiting with a thank you card signed by the Carter family, decorated with hand-drawn hearts and the words, "Thank you for believing in us." Tears welled as I pinned it to my bulletin board, a testament to collective healing. In the months to come, I knew challenges would arise, setbacks that might test the fragile fabric of trust. But the light of recovery glowed in every milestone. A healthy weight gain, a restful night's sleep, a confident stride across a playground, a heartfelt apology, a family's quiet laughter. These moments formed an enduring mosaic, each piece essential to the whole. As I left the clinic that day, I paused beneath a canopy of maples, leaves fluttering like gentle applause. In their shifting colors, I saw reflected the resilience of children, the capacity for transformation, and the promise that even the deepest wounds could heal in time. And in that moment, surrounded by golden light and the whisper of autumn breezes, I felt certain that recovery was not an end, but an ever-unfolding beginning.